And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where everything's in a wrap. Because this week we watched Arrival 2009.
Written by Bill Gallagher.
Directed by Nick Horan.
And aired on November 15th, 2009.
We're back. Inevitable is back.
Inevitable is back, and it feels good to be back.
Yeah, you know, it's like putting on an old sweater. Wait, do I use that metaphor every time we say that? I think I do. Well, anyway, it's like putting on an old sweater. You know, and not only are we back with Inevitable, we're back in the Prisoner-verse, let's say.
Yeah, and I'm, after having many weeks off from The Prisoner, and honestly being kind of tired of it at the end of the last season, I'm glad to be back with the Prisoner franchise. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to be able to explore now that we're watching the 2009 Prisoner miniseries.
Yeah, so we should explain, I think at the end of our last season we mentioned that we might do some expanded universe Prisoner stuff in this season as well. But in between the seasons, we decided against that because we started a blog between the seasons. And
for some reason.
Pretty much all of those things are much better suited to the blog format. Things like the books and the Shattered Visage comic book. Just all kind of are better suited to a literary format, let's say. And also the video game.
So. Right. We already have Prisoner content on there, so I'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, Dylan has already done blog posts on the Prisoner video game and has played it, and those are really interesting because the game is itself really interesting and was used to train CIA agents. There's actually two Prisoner games. There's one from 1980 and then another one from 1984.
Yeah, although technically I guess the same game, they just like remade their own game and gave it color graphics. So it's weird. It's like the fastest remake of a video game ever made. But yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with the game, and just like, yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm glad I did a blog post on that instead of forcing us to play it for the podcast, because there's a lot to dive into with that. But yeah, so we're watching the 2009 miniseries for this, made by AMC.
Yeah, this is the American one that people always talk about online and say is not very good, which is obviously something we're going to be tackling.
Yeah, and something I wanted to talk about was how I'm hoping to try and judge this on its own merit, or try to at least separate the judgment of how good it is from the question of how good of an adaptation or remake it is. And I guess that's what I'm going to strive to do this season. Obviously, drawing comparisons between the two is a given.
Is inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable, you might say. But I would like to try and, in some way, see if it stands on its own, which will be difficult, but...
Yeah, definitely. And even just with this first episode, or at least, I'll speak for myself, I can already see that this is going to be a pretty different show.
Yeah, this is going to go in a very different direction, I think, a lot of the time. It's going to do some different things, maybe some similar things. I mean, even from the first episode, the entire premise of the show is even slightly different, because number 6 doesn't even remember his previous life, which was really important to the original incarnation of the show.
Right. I'm really glad that they did switch up the premise. I think that just leaves, a lot more room for just being interested in what's going to happen, I guess. I mean, if they just rehashed the same premise, yeah, we would probably get 6 pretty different episodes tackling different things and stuff. But like, I'm probably more interested than I would have been if they just did the same premise again, where 6 resigned and they're trying to figure out why. Yeah,
I think also the decision to make him forget or remember his past piecemeal, I think is smart, not only because it's changing the premise, but also because it allows you to put the audience into a similar position as number 6. Especially in this episode compared to the original show. In the original show, there is an element of a disconnect between you and 6, who is the protagonist, because he knows why he resigned. And you're almost on the side of the village by the end of the show, because you're like, well, why the hell did you resign? Like, what the heck happened? Whereas by having number 6 not even remember anything he was doing or what happened, you as the audience are kind of also like, well, what's going on? Why is he here?
Yeah, there's definitely that element of Schadenfreude with the original where it's like you kind of want to see Six fail every week because it's just so hilarious every time it happens, and it's just, and this one, at least in this episode, it's not really present so far.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing about the Schadenfreude was like Patrick McGowan's ego
Yeah.
just bleeding into the character of Six, and you just really wanting to see him knocked down a peg every week. You're like, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing too, and obviously we spent what 17 weeks. I think The Prisoner was 17 episodes or 18 weeks talking about how meta the original series was, which this series is definitely, I think, also going to at least skirt, if not fully, kind of dive into.
Right, and related to that, one of the things I read doing a little research on the production of this show was that Bill Gallagher actually was a fan of the original show. He watched it, he liked it, and so he did approach this from the perspective of being a fan, but also wanting to do something unique and original with it. Jim Caviezel apparently basically had never seen The Prisoner. Ian McKellen mentioned in an interview that he had seen it once when it aired originally and that he liked it, but that both him and Jim basically tried to approach these roles with their own perspective without trying to emulate or simulate too much of the performance of the original.
Yeah, and in that way, maybe this will almost have like a reboot Doctor Who feel, where it's like, it's obviously sort of the same. Maybe I'll retract that, but it's like it's sort of the same concept, or like they're going for the same feel ish, or maybe it's a reverse of that, or maybe it's not similar at all. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's definitely something to think about when we're watching. Although it's funny you should bring that up because apparently at one point Christopher Eccleston was heavily rumored to play Six in a possible reboot in 2005, 2006-ish, right after he left Doctor Who. So...
Well, yeah, there were other possible reboots as you found out doing some research. So why don't we kind of dive into that before we really start here?
Yeah, so there's a really interesting article on the Unmutual Prisoner Archive, which we referenced a lot in our previous season on The Prisoner, season 4 of Inevitable. Check out our podcast, Inevitable.
This one?
We referenced it a lot, and they have an article written by Rick Davey, originally published in the Tally Ho, which is a Prisoner fanzine, entitled "Could It Have Been Worse?" Not a promising title. And he goes through all the previous reboots and then ends by basically saying that, even if you think the Prisoner remake from 2009 is bad, just look back at all these other possibly worse adaptations that it saved us from. So the very first potential adaptation was apparently Louis Griefer in 1968 was planning on not rebooting The Prisoner, but making a show with a very Prisoner-esque theme. But McGowan opted not to be involved because The Prisoner wasn't a success, and ITC basically binned it. But then 1985, this is when it really picks up steam. CBS wanted to reboot The Prisoner, and they purchased the rights from Lou Grade and got as far as apparently writing a pilot for the show before it got shelved. Rick Davies says that the pilot, The Edge of Within, is more, quote, more akin to Blade Runner than The Prisoner, with the village replaced by the city and the lead character the son of Number 6, close quote.
Wow, I would like to see that.
I would love to see that script if it exists somewhere, because it sounds wild. In 1993, there was apparently rumors that McGowan was going to reboot the series himself. Polygram held the rights. They announced that they were working on a series with McGowan. McGowan said that he couldn't attend a convention because of working on his new show. But it ended, and I think Polygram insinuated it was going to be a remake, but then it fell apart. Obviously, there's the Christopher McQuarrie potential movie-esque remake with Will Smith.
I didn't know about that one. Wow, that's wow. Will Smith is number 6, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, and then there was the 2005-2006 one, which was rumored might have featured Christopher Eccleston, and then the Christopher Nolan movie one, which has never come to fruition as well.
Yeah, it could be cool.
And then eventually this one, the AMC one. The AMC one even had its own rocky history because it is a co-production with ITV, but actually didn't start as a co-production with ITV. It originally was a co-production with a different British network whose name I have somewhere in my notes, but I can't find it at the moment. But they pulled out eventually.
And ITV stepped in.
And ITV stepped in to finish the job, basically.
Yeah, good for them. Good for them.
So, and that's the storied journey to the screen of The Prisoner 2009.
One that many people probably wish didn't happen because there's a lot of disdain for this series, as we mentioned already.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes from people who are big fans of the original, which is understandable. But again, that's I'm hoping to separate the is it a good adaptation / reboot from the is it good on its own viewpoints.
Right, and it does seem, in terms of the making of, in terms of how this was all brought to screen, it does seem like, there's sort of that same vibe, like with The Village, with this being in, oh God, you looked up say it, but now I didn't. Swakopmund?
Swakopmund, yeah. The P is silent. It's German.
Mm-hmm.
It's a German word.
In Namibia. So obviously the village in the original Prisoner was in Portmeirion, Wales, which also showed up in Mask of Mandragora and Doctor Who.
Which we like to mention every time we're talking about Portmeirion.
Yeah. But this one is in a different place. It's a sort of a desert town, and it was done in Namibia.
Yeah, desert town that's also on the coast, so like Portmeirion with that coastal access.
Yeah, and I was curious about that because when I looked up the city, Swakopmund, I saw that it was on the coast, and you can see if you just go on Wikipedia or Google, like you'll see the coast and the beaches and all of that. But was that incorporated into the show, or will it be? Because I didn't see any water in the actual series, so I'm guessing.
I think it will be. I mean, I think there is that scene in Arrival that like references The Prisoner 1969 with not 1969, 63 with
67?
67? I don't even remember anymore.
It's 67.
67, okay, 67 with Jim Caviezel's number 6 running across the beach in flashbacks, not flashbacks, like fade-ins, fade-outs. But from what I was reading, I think it will be incorporated into the series in some way.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to see, access. Yeah. There is a deleted scene in which water appears, but it's more of like this sort of lake or almost reservoir-looking thing, but it's pretty small.
Yeah, so maybe we should mention how we're watching these. So these are basically impossible to find on streaming. Unless you have like an AMC account or a cable login, and you can watch it on the AMC website. So I think we both purchased the DVD off Amazon for $15.
Yeah, I found it. I mean, I saw that it was on there for $15, and I was like, all right, you have access to that, have access to the deleted scenes, might as well. I mean, the only other real way to do it would be to pirate it, which is like, all right, I'll spend $15 on the DVD for it.
Yeah, $15 is not an untrivial amount of money, but it's not expensive.
Yeah, no, I had no problem buying this for $15. And then plus you get the bonus content as well. And it actually came in a pretty nice case and everything. It's
got a slip cover.
Yeah, and it has a nice like little pull-out card thing that has information. I didn't do that on
my
purpose.
My slip card is bent.
But yeah, I mean, if you want this series, if you're out there and you like this series, I do recommend the DVD for it. Obviously, I don't know. Obviously, we had the Region 1, or we have the Region 1 copy of this, so I don't know what this looks like or what other sets there are in other countries, other regions. But yeah, the American version of it's really nice.
Yeah, and there's a Blu-ray as well available for $200 or something
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I guess they've only printed like 5 copies.
And I imagine the Blu-ray is like pretty much the same thing, just with fewer discs.
Maybe higher definition video.
Oh yeah, higher definition video and better audio, but of course. Although sometimes
But I
not.
mean-
There's like, I don't know why I know this and why I've spent hours reading about this online, but like early Blu-rays were often just the DVD but put onto a Blu-ray. And people who like really collect DVDs and Blu-rays and are into that in the mid 2000s often got very upset over that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're paying extra for the higher quality format. You would think they'd put some effort in and make a good transfer of the movie in like HD or something.
Yeah, and especially like there wouldn't be any added audio channels. It would just be the DVD on a Blu-ray disc.
Yeah, you know, because all 5 people with a full 5.1 Dolby surround sound system in their home, like,
Yeah.
really pulling for that extra
Yeah,
channel
hey,
of
people
audio.
did. I mean, you go on.
People do
Yeah,
still.
but you go on. Like, obviously, I'm not too into like watching things in the best way possible, but a lot of people are. And you go on those old forums, and they're like, "This is an outrage." I'm personally offended by this and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can get it also. I mean, I can understand you're paying more too. Like, paying more for crappy quality is, I don't know, it's kind of a rip.
The
just
same
saying.
quality, essentially. I don't think it's necessarily crappy. It's
Well,
just the
worse
same.
than you would expect.
Either way, that's neither here nor there. We both have the DVD, so we didn't spend the $200 on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, so I didn't watch the deleted scenes this week, but I think Keon suggested this before recording that we might. It seems like they have deleted scenes for every episode, so we might make that a recurring segment in these episodes.
Yeah, I'll watch them for as many as they have the deleted scenes. They have them for the first 3 episodes at least, and I watched them for this, and they're pretty interesting. So we'll dive into those.
Yeah, I'll watch them too moving forward. I didn't even think about watching them this week because my copy of the DVD arrived
Yeah,
today.
hell yeah!
Just revealing that on air.
They also, episode 1 also had a commentary, which I did not listen to, so maybe at the end of this, I know there's some scheduling reasons why we don't want to extend the season beyond the 6 episodes of the show, but maybe if we can somehow squeeze it in, I'll listen to the commentary, but maybe not.
Yeah, Pop Apostle, which I referenced last season too, has a couple notes, at least for Arrival, from the audio commentary, but most of them is just interesting things that we've talked about already. We didn't mention already, actually, that 2's palatial house is in actuality a hotel there in Mckellen. So they basically use that entire hotel as his house.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the entire setting really does evoke Port Marion without just being like, all right, we just want to do this thing over again. But it's really, I really enjoy how they kind of are trying to evoke that again in sort of a different way, in a different setting, in a different like story. Just putting you in this like really weird, uncanny place that has that resort feel. And it's almost like, you know, I was watching this and I was like, oh my God, this is like, I thought this was in, you know, the desert out here in like California or like the American Southwest. It's not, obviously, but like, and I almost thought like, wow, this is like this sort of resort, like Disneyland, totally fake area type thing, which, yeah.
Yeah, the production diary for this TV show, which is really difficult to find because AMC has, since 2009, redesigned their website substantially. So the actual like index to their blog posts still exists on amc.com/talk instead of blog. But if you click any blog post, read more, it just error 404. But you can take that link and dump it into archive.org.
Yeah.
And get a backup. So that's how I was reading some of the production diary. And the production diary is really interesting. They basically, it was like a weekly blog post from the filming crew in Namibia and South Africa talking about what they filmed that week and difficulties they encountered or whatever. And I think Nick Horan and Bill Gallagher talk about how they wanted to evoke Port Marion, but they couldn't just go back to Port Marion because it's so recognizable and so distinctly Prisoner 1967. Like, it's so inextricably linked to that they couldn't go back there because you would just immediately be setting yourself up for failure, I think is the term they used.
Yeah, I get that.
And hence they went looking for somewhere else, and Swakopmund presented itself. There's also conflicting information on like whether Patrick McGoohan was going to be involved, what he would have done if he was involved. So I think a lot of people believe that 93, who we'll explain in a minute, but is basically the first village resident we meet, was supposed to be Patrick McGoohan in a cameo appearance.
Right, and we'll get into that in just a minute because we're almost there.
Yeah, some of the conflicting information is, well, Ian McKellen claims that Patrick McGoohan basically didn't show up because he didn't want to take any role that was less than number 2. He wanted to be number 2. Although some other people dispute that Patrick McGoohan never even wanted to be involved at all. So.
Yeah, and that's weird because 93, how it's done is he's like, I know Patrick McGoohan really liked to be that man of mystery, but and that's what 93 really is. I think Patrick McGoohan would have been perfect as 93, as we're about to dive into.
Yeah, and like the 93 character in this episode, to me, set up so many interesting directions they could take this that I'll talk about at the end because they require the context of the whole episode. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to talk about, so if you want to just dive in, I'm good to just dive into the plot.
No, yeah, the only other thing I wanted to mention, which I just literally learned seconds ago because I just saw it right now, is that this aired over the course of 1 week, so it was actually only 3 days. It was Arrival and Harmony, episode 2, on November 15th, and then Anvil and Darling were November 16th. Schizoid and Checkmate were November 17th, so this was only actually 3 days long. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that either, actually. That's, I mean, kind of almost Children of Earth-esque there.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost sort of, yeah, like they just made 3 movies almost and just aired them on 3 different days. Sort of would have that feel, I guess.
Yeah, these are 45-minute episodes each, I guess we should mention.
So, no, not longer than the original. The original was about the same, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the original was about 51, I think, on average.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm just about ready to jump into this, like, this dream of a plot. It felt like I was just watching some dream. And I don't know, like, my dreams are kind of like this. My dreams are very action-y and adventure-y, and just weird stuff happens. And yeah, I don't know, we don't need to get too into that, but man, my dreams are like really exciting.
My dreams, just weird stuff happens without being super exciting sometimes, and I'll wake up and I'm like, wow, I don't know why like I considered all of that just completely normal in the dream. Like I was just like, yep, completely fine with that.
Yeah, my dreams are like just off the wall action movies. Like, man, some weird stuff has happened in my dreams that is awesome, but also like totally off the wall. And this was almost.
Yeah, mine have. I've had dreams that have like full on like A to B plots.
Yeah, so do I.
So like, and then I always wake up and I go, how did my mind construct such an intricate and amazing plot? And I'm like, Then I forget it like 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Although I will say this about my dreams before we get into the plots. I used to, at the beginning of quarantine, I started writing them down. And the more I wrote them down, the more I remembered them, and the darker they got.
Oh my God.
Because I started to remember more of them, and I started to realize that some of them are really dark, so then I stopped writing them down. I was like, no, thank you.
Oh yeah, mine are like conspiracy themed a lot. Like a lot. Maybe I shouldn't admit that. I don't know what that says about me, but like, there's some pretty big conspiracy theories in my dreams. And also just really sinister plots, and yeah.
Great.
Anyway, speaking of sinister plots, we're back with The Prisoner and its plot in the 2009 miniseries.
Nice. Something you could have said 24 minutes ago and would have been just as apt.
Well, now we're actually diving into the plot, which begins with some weird broadcasts.
Yeah, kind of a montage of like broadcasts of some sort.
Don't really know what this is at this point. We still don't know now at this point of recording the podcast. I'm assuming we're going to learn because unlike the original series, and again, Dylan said he doesn't want to compare the two and judge based on that comparison. And I'm in the same boat. I would like to make the comparisons when they appear, but also try and judge on, this series by itself.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I can agree with
and
that.
I think we should compare when we find, points of comparison, but also remember that this series not hitting the mark of the original one isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yes.
So, but right off the bat, this is really tonally different from the 1967 show because, in 1967, it's pretty clear from early on in the show that this is a series that's not really going to play its hand ever. It's just going to be this confusing thing that just kind of leaves you like, yep, this is exactly what it is, and you just take away from it what you want. This show, from what I'm seeing so far, is very tonally it's setting up these mysteries and with the idea that it's going to be all solved.
Yeah, there is that feeling to it. I agree with that. I mean, that actually pretty much succinctly describes this feeling that I've had since I watched it that I couldn't put my fingers on. That, yeah, the feeling is that there is going to be an explanation to this, whereas I think with Arrival 1967, there was not the feeling that you were ever going to get answers, even though you hoped that you would.
Right.
You weren't.
Yeah.
And that became more abundantly clear with Chimes of Big Ben.
Yeah, and just for the entire series, it's this slowly building thing where it's like, all right, this is really not going to end. And we actually talked about that when we discussed Fallout. I remember us saying, imagine if this did just give you all the answers. That would actually be the bigger, middle finger, because it does build this kind of feeling of you're not really going to ever know.
Yeah, if Patrick really wanted to piss off the fans, just give all the answers in Fallout. Explain everything to the most minute detail.
Just sit a chair in front of the camera, literally look into it, and just be like, all right, and this is what this was all about, folks.
Yeah, just explain everything those chimes. So I picked the tone G major because the most minute. It's a 6 hour episode of Patrick staring into the camera and explaining everything.
But no, this one is definitely building the mysteries. I think with the I don't know what you would call it, the tone or the feeling that by episode 6 we're gonna know what this all is.
Yeah, there's also the difference in that even right off the bat in 1967, we know how Number 6 gets to the village. We know that he gets kidnapped while he's leaving after he resigns. Whereas in this, we do later in the episode see a flashback very reminiscent of the Prisoner opening sequence, but we don't know how 6 got here. We don't know how he's been kidnapped, even. We're just thrown right in the middle of a desert with a guy screaming, "Where am I?"
Right, and that's exactly what happens. And then you see number 93, who is probably one of the biggest enigmas from this entire mess of enigmas. He as a character is very interesting because he dies pretty much right now. We're about to get to that, but he is really the center of all of what's going on in the rest of the episode, and he visually evokes Patrick McGoohan pretty heavily. He's wearing the same clothes. He looks very much like a bearded, older Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah, because Patrick McGoohan grows a beard in his older life, and yeah, he looks exactly like this as we saw in My Mind.
Mm-hmm. And he's
even wearing the jacket.
Yeah. So this, I would imagine that if Patrick McGoohan was in this show, this is what his role would be. And he's a very mysterious guy. So he's being, if I remember correctly, he's being shot at by some people on a little hill or cliff or something.
Yeah.
And the new number 6, our hero, our main character, is whoa, and he tries to save him. He brings him to this little cave.
Mm-hmm.
And
then he basically dies. He says, go to 554. 6 thinks that this is an address, but he doesn't continue. He just says, go to 554. And then he dies. And I have a note that says, wow, imagine dying and your last words be seeing you.
Maybe that's what this is he's time traveled, right? And to BC times, so be seeing you. and he needs to get back to
Wow.
ADing you. I don't know.
The worst part is that that's almost like a potential explanation.
Yeah, it's like this time, like this society that accidentally like jumped through some sort of time rift and has set this up. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if you got this feeling, but like by the end of the episode, when they're having this funeral for 93, I started to get this really like uneasy, interesting feeling that maybe this whole beginning, even like 93 didn't die, that all of this was set up for number 6 to see, and that's why like he's being shot at by the guards, even though we clearly see later that Rover exists in this adaptation.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would be very much in line with what the original show often did, which is like number 6 would think he had people on his side, and he would go through this entire plan, and then it would be revealed that no, it was actually just in this bigger plan where he was a dupe.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, we don't have any of the answers in this episode.
No. And that's the thing, too, is I know we're harping a lot on the differences right off the bat, but I think as the show goes on, we'll have less and we'll be more dialed into the plot and stuff. But it's like The Prisoner 1967 was very episodic, and this one probably will be too, but maybe not as much because it's way shorter.
I think there's a bigger serialized nature here.
Yeah.
To these 6 episodes. So 6, he kind of passes out and wakes up again, and he's now in the middle of, I guess, the residence area of the village, and he runs into a taxi and basically asks him to take him to a train station. The guy goes, I only do local trips. And he's like, well, take me to New York. He's like, I only do local trips. I'm only inside the village.
So I think at this point he doesn't ask him to go to 554. He just bails. He just jumps out of the cab.
Yeah, he just dives out of the moving cab.
Yeah. So this too is, if you remember back to Arrival 1967, the first thing 6 does is he gets taken around the village in that little cart.
Yeah, but so he gets back in the taxi, and I actually think this is a more clever way for him to find out that everybody's a number, because the taxi driver is talking about his wife and his daughter, and then reveals that his daughter's name is 832, and number 6 makes this connection. He says, so if I asked you then to take me to 554, what would you say? And 147 says, then I'd say you're talking. Like, now we're talking.
And he does that. They go to like this little residential area, and number 6, he's not number 6 yet, but he will be, goes to 554, but no one's home.
Yeah, so I guess this is an apt point to mention that in this show, they don't refer to people as number blank. They just use the number, so 6 or 2 or 554. But out of habit, I keep calling them number blank, and I'm probably going to do that for the whole show, so I just want to get that out.
Yeah, I'll probably do the same. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's a little clunky when Ian McKellen's delivering his lines. He's like, 6 wants to do this, and it's like, just you're so used to hearing number 6 that when he just goes 6 wants to go to the store or something, you're like, it feels uncomfortable in your mind.
Yeah, maybe that's a way of like people who watch the original show are gonna feel that like weirdness from it, you know. Something else here that we get right off the bat, too, is something that people who've watched the original show multiple times will probably notice, is that there are kids in the village. Because right away we see the daughter.
We also right away learn that 147 is married, or number 147, he's married, and has a kid, and so on and so forth.
So one of the neighbors of 554... I think gives 6 directions. I'm going to try and call him 6 and not number 6.
Yeah, may as well make the effort. He gives directions to the cafe where 554 works. It's a lot easier with the 3-digit numbers because we basically never got those.
Yeah, the numbers in this one are wild. There's the 3-digit numbers, obviously. There's 1112, which I thought while watching it obviously was just, 1112. But then I looked on IMDb and it's 11-12, so that's a thing. There's someone called M2 I'm seeing on IMDb as well, so there's just a lot of weirdness there.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see if they're going to do anything interesting with that or not.
So he goes into this cafe and he meets 554 and orders a coffee in like a pretty humorous scene. I like that this show has that humor, because the original one did too, but it wasn't always like in the original Prisoner you felt you were laughing at it a lot of the time.
Yeah, this is a funny scene because he's looking at the menu and everything is a
Right.
wrap. Like his only options are
Right.
wraps.
So he asks for a coffee and they bring him a coffee wrap. No, they just bring him a regular coffee.
I literally have that as a note in my as a coffee
Yeah.
wrap for you, sir. But when Six talks briefly with 554, and then he goes outside and he sees a man dressed in white. We later find out we see that this is Ian McKellen, and we know that this is 2. Six doesn't find out that this is 2 until later in the episode.
554 is very hesitant to cooperate with him. Oh, we skipped the entire thing with the club in the bar.
Oh yeah.
Number 6.
He stumbles into a club after he jumps out of the taxi.
Right, and then he like makes eye contact with this woman, and he asks her to help him get out and just kind of where he is and everything. And he's also at the time he's seeing, and it's not clear if these are hallucinations or if they're actually after him, but he's seeing like guys with like police dogs and such like coming after him, and he's getting scared. So
Right.
that happens, during the night. And then the next day is when he goes to meet 554, and she's very hesitant to cooperate with him. She does reveal that she knows 93, but she says he was just this random drunk.
Yeah, there's a moment of realization on her face that betrays the fact that that's not true.
Right. He's obviously a very important guy, and he's, again, the biggest enigma of all of this, which is why, if Patrick McGoohan was in this, I think that would be the perfect role for him. Because that would add just another layer of like, wait, what's going on here? Is this a sequel? Is this, what is this type thing?
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely want to talk about this later because there's some other things we learn about 93 that make me go, with the whole thing.
Yeah. Honestly, the more we talk about this, I hate to just drop this in the middle, but I want to just get it off my chest. It's like the more we talk about this, the more like fascinated I am by this series, and I think it's going to be a really good ride.
Yeah, I mean, like, whether it's good or it's bad, I think we'll find something to enjoy in it, I think. Since we love overanalyzing everything we watch to death. What? So we then, after seeing the club scene and 2, we also in here somewhere, and I don't remember where exactly, see a bit of a flashback. And it's not actually clear that it's a flashback at first. You only find out it's a flashback when it ends and he wakes up and tells someone. I think it actually happens now, because he's talking to 2. Then we get the flashback. And he wakes up and someone's like, you were talking to someone while he was lying on the ground. But the flashback is basically he's at a bar drinking, and he sees this girl and talks with her a bit. And she asks like if he's celebrating something, if there's a party. And he says, yeah, I'm celebrating. And I think this is also when we see the flashback that's like very much the Prisoner intro redone in 2009.
Oh, is it? I didn't even notice that.
Oh, did you like he drives his car, a Subaru, into the basement. He takes the elevator, then he like storms down an escalator instead of up the stairs, and then like instead of slamming down an I resigned, he like paints I resigned on the wall suitably over the top.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason I didn't even make that connection. I was just like, oh, okay, this is happening, but like, yeah, I didn't even see that as a redo of the intro. God.
The intro.
Yeah, this is what you people are getting with a new season of Inevitable, is me messing up every single easy word. But yeah, he escapes from the diner, and like this is when this is all happening, because again, he's being chased by these people. It's not clear whether he's hallucinating it or not, and yeah, he gets taken into this like hospital and all this, so...
Yeah, he wakes up and he sees 313, and she mentions that he was talking to someone in his sleep. It was a girl of some sort, and he says, "Oh, it's some sort of like dream."
Damn, this whole freaking thing feels like a dream. Dreams within dreams.
We're going Inception today, boys.
Yeah, when did Inception come out? It was around this time, wasn't it?
Well, that's why I actually think that like Christopher Nolan, who directs Inception and was attached, it was 2010 Inception comes out, who directs Inception and was attached to a movie version of The Prisoner, would actually be like the perfect director to do this, because he does a lot of these really, God, I can't think of a better term than this, so I'll just have to censor it in post, but like movies.
Just trippy stuff. And
yeah, where he deals with all sorts of crazy themes, and like you come out of the movie and you're like, man, like, what did that even mean?
Yeah, he goes into like this quantum physics stuff, and he has a lot of stuff with like time, but he also like connects it to like the prehistory and like all this weird stuff, but in a really cool way.
Yeah, and Inception, I think, is definitely his most successful attempt. Not to say that all his movies aren't successful to some degree at doing that, but Inception, I think, is his most successful one at playing with, like, timelines and dreams and, like, your perception of reality and, like, how a movie works, even. I mean, his first movie, Memento, is two stories told in opposite directions time-wise at the same time concurrently.
Yeah.
So, like, he really would, I think, if I had to pick a director today, working today, to direct a Prisoner movie, I think like Christopher Nolan would be the best choice.
Yeah, I mean the original Prisoner, it never really did this overtly. It never really showed what kind of hand it was hiding with this stuff. But I remember back when we watched it, we were like identifying, you know, certain themes, maybe just sort of side themes, if you will, I guess, maybe not even the main thing, but it was like, you know, number 6 was being sort of watched by history, right? He was being watched by these ancient statues and these things that looked old and from antiquity, but they weren't. They were like cameras and stuff. Maybe, you know, saying that the village had been, you know, or the idea behind the village is not new type thing. So I don't know. There's a lot of different cool things you could do with it.
Yeah, that collision between past and future, that juxtaposition almost. Yeah. Which is kind of happening here. I mean, Swakopmund is a village that was built or founded when the Germans were occupying Southwest Africa, and has maintained a lot of that German identity, even though it is now part of the nation of Namibia. Not only that, but being a German city surrounded by like what would have been at the time it was built probably Dutch and English colonies.
Yeah, and you could even, I don't know, I don't really have anything to say on this, but so maybe I shouldn't even bring it up, but going to anyway. Is like you could even look at these through a colonial like eye, right? Because there was, the first one was Wales, so you know, I don't know too much about the history of Wales, but it's obviously, it's not England, it's not like, you know, the main, you know, part of Britain as it's seen, and like obviously the English and the Welsh have this sort of maybe fraught relationship or something, and then like this one obviously is taking place in this former colony, not in the show, but in behind the scenes type thing. So, yeah, I don't know.
But getting back to the village, 6, almost called number 6. 6 goes to the village store, asks for a map.
I love this scene. This is my favorite scene in the whole thing.
Yeah, this is pretty funny. I don't know, you go ahead and describe it.
It's just like the scene from the original where he goes into the store and he asks for a map, and the guy asks him what type he wants or whatever, color or black and white, or I forget what it is in this one. It's like full size. So he goes and he gives him this like little tiny things, like that's it, that's like the biggest one you have, and he's like, fold it out, buddy. And so he folds it out. It's this massive, like, he keeps unfolding it and he keeps unfolding it, and it's just huge. And 6 is like, yeah, right, whatever.
It looks impossible to refold.
Yeah. And just impossible to read. It doesn't even give you like, the map is like, and that's actually, there's this story by Borges. I know I've referenced it on the Doctor Who podcast a lot. Maybe I've referenced it on this one too, of like, I forget what it's called. The title's it's on exactitude in science, and it's about this like country that wants to make a map so exact that they end up just making a map that's as big as the country itself. And then some philosopher, I forget who, it might have been like Sartre or something like that, like played with that idea, and he wrote about the story and said like, no, the map isn't a copy of the country is a copy of the map. So
oh jeez.
Yeah. It gets really trippy and weird.
Jeez.
But
turtles all the way down.
But this is like it's done in a funny way, I think, and it has that sort of vibe with which this whole thing has, but encapsulated into one scene, which is like the almost absurd nature of what's going on, yet it's also really sinister and evil.
Yeah, and the humor lands because they don't even really draw attention to it. Like, neither Six nor the shop owner really go, oh, wow, that's a big map for such a small package, or whatever. They just unfold it, and then just the humor is all visual. You have to be like, that then gets accentuated when he dumps a second folded map on top, and he's like, buy one, get one free, and then you look at the size of the tiny folded copy versus the huge one, and you're just like, wow.
And then Six even goes like, what the hell would you want with two maps? And I don't know, the whole thing is just really actually pretty funny, so... Props.
Like the guy responds with, it makes a great gift. Like, what? Yeah. So we then get another flashback to the lady. She wants to borrow Six's phone. Mm-hmm. And she does. And then she walks off with it.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, that's my phone.
He doesn't seem bothered by it. He has that, I guess, swagger that is associated with Six, because number 6 had it too, but it was more egocentric, I guess, with Patrick McGoohan. But like, yeah, he had that too, and he kind of walks over and he's like, hey, like, you took my phone.
Yeah. And she's like, well, I told myself I wouldn't apologize to men anymore, and I'm like, wow, just give him his phone back.
Mm-hmm. Is this during this part where Six tries to leave the village? Because at some point he tries to he steals the cab driver's car. I think it's after he speaks to number 2. I think he goes out and he steals the driver's car.
I'm just looking at my notes. I think is that not like right after the taxi driver gets called to number 2? Or is that before 2? Just 2, sorry. Just 2. Is that before?
Oh, it might be. No, yeah, I think it is now, because he sees those 2 weird towers that almost look like the Twin Towers off in the distance. And then at that point, he takes the cab and he just tries to leave because he realizes that he's kind of, stuck in this very weird place.
He drives out into the desert only to be captured by 2, who says the great line, "There's no out, there's only in."
Some of the dialogue in this was really cheesy. I don't have specific examples, but some of it like really was.
Some of it was cheesy, but some of it like really lands. Like a little bit later when it's about now, 6 breaks into 93's house to see if there's anything in there that could give him a clue as to how he got out and why.
Because 313, we should mention, drives him back into the village, and that's when she kind of introduces herself proper, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he breaks into the house, and this exchange between 2 and 6 just like lands perfectly to me, because number 2 says, open your mind, you might like it here, and 6 responds with, if I open my mind, you might take it away from me, and 2 responds with, we might, but we'll always give it back. And just that exchange that exchange was the highlight of this episode to me.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Even some of the cheesier dialogue does kind of work to its benefit, I think, because it makes it seem like this big staged performance type thing, which is even more creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the piece of paper that number 6 finds in 93's house has a picture of... Hold on, I wrote it
Big
down.
Ben, I think.
Yes, Big Ben.
And that's when I was like, this episode was doing, I think if that had been Patrick McGoohan, I'm just going to pretend that it is, because I think if it is, this episode is doing some really interesting stuff relating to the old show, and like the Big Ben drawing just immediately evoked chimes of Big Ben to me with this whole escape plan, and then Big Ben like immediately evoked all of that to me.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I'm just looking here. Oh, no, there's not. I thought there was an episode named Chimes, because all the episodes are riffs on the episode titles of the original show. Sometimes they are exactly the same, like this one, Arrival, but then there's other ones like harmony, which is obviously living in harmony, and then like schizoid, which is obviously the schizoid man. And the last one is...
I do like darling, which is just do not forsake me, oh my darling. But
the last one is actually checkmate instead of, fallout or whatever. Which I guess they would just be either fall or out.
Fallout can be one word.
Yeah, it could be. It could just be out, because like in this one, 6 had the line, or 2 had the line, there's no out, there's only in, so maybe it could have been like out. But maybe he doesn't get out, so, who knows.
Or maybe they adapt the like plot of Checkmate in some way into that episode.
Right.
Which, like, these episode titles are going to real strain my memory, because some of those, like, do not forsake me, oh my darling. Like, I don't remember these very well.
Yeah, Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling was the one with
the brain in the opposite body, I believe. He puts his brain into the other body and then, like, goes to Switzerland or whatever to get the doctor back, I think.
Yes, it was the one with Seltzman.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Which, it's confusing because that was the one named after the American song, the Ballad of High Noon, called Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. Which, like, I always confused that one with Living in Harmony, which I believe was the one with the fake Western town.
Yeah, and I was almost going to say, for some reason, I guess I get those confused too, because I was almost going to say that it was the Western one, but it wasn't.
I think it's because of that, because it's named after this song.
Yeah. Anyway, we find out now why 2 called in the cab driver and his wife, and he gives them, like, medals of honor.
Yeah, for, like, interacting with 6.
He also...
Like, I'm starting to wonder if all of this is just some weird thing that 2 is, like, a mega billionaire and he's just, like, paying all these people to live out his fantasy. God, that would be the most wild explanation in Checkmate.
He's just a really big Prisoner fan, and he wanted to, like, kind of do the same thing.
God, that would actually be such a meta ending.
Oh my god. I don't think that's what's going to even remotely happen.
No. I don't think the network TV would risk that.
No. That would be like a fan fiction like level of thing, which it would be cool, but I don't think it's what would happen. But he also asked them to bake a cherry cake.
For some reason.
Yeah, which he eats like in a kind of gross way later on, which is he's eating with his hands, he's shoving it into his mouth.
According to Papa Parcel in the audio commentary, they say this cake was just a red herring that they introduced in this episode to throw people off the scent for later episodes.
Wow.
Maybe it's like part of the law of equivalent exchange. You want the medals, you give me a cake. I don't know, the village is weird.
Yeah, 2 really got to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah, to eat it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
At some point, I don't remember how exactly this happens, but 6 finds another drawing from 93, and it's like the Statue of Liberty.
313 gives it to him. Not 313, 554 gives it to him.
554 gives it to him.
Because she says that there are other people who dream of a life outside the village. So it kind of seems to me like they're setting the village up in this one to... people like don't even remember their lives outside the village. Like all they know is the village, which is kind of reinforced by the next scene with 554 says something like 512 invented the light bulb.
Right. 313 and no, I think that was with 313 because there was a point where 6 was like he was laying down, he was just like stargazing, and 313 shows up, which I think we actually already skipped the point with 313 where he's walking through the streets during the day and they kind of learn a little more about the village. But yeah, he's just basically gazing up at the sky. He asks 313 to sit with him, and she gives history, but it's a little wrong. It's all the famous people or numbers.
Was there 313? I thought that was 554 because, like, doesn't he ask her to lie on the ground and she says something like, "You're supposed to be convincing me you're sane" or something? I guess that could be 313. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it was 313. 554 does have that heart-to-heart moment with him later on where I think what the gist of it was that she thought he was almost a plant to kind of get her to reveal herself, and but then she was realizing that he wasn't. Yeah. And then she kind of trusted him a little more, and that's when she gave him the picture of the Statue of Liberty.
you know 554 is going to be dead by the end of the episode because 6 turns to her and promises her that she'll be safe with him. And like that's just like narratively, that's just a like big red flag that dead by the end of the
sticking a skull and crossbones sticker, slapping it right on her forehead, basically.
I honestly would have been more surprised if 554 survived. So after this heart-to-heart with the light bulb and everything and being all wrong, 6 goes to meet 554 the next day at the diner, and kind of as he's going there, he gets called over by 147, and he's like, yeah, you want a taxi? And he's like, well, I'm going to the diner right now. Then you realize, or I realize, that like, because then 6 turns and is going to the diner, and a bomb goes off and kills 554. Mm-hmm. And I kind of was like 147 clued into the plan? Did he like delay 6 so that he wouldn't die in the bomb as well? Because like if 147 hadn't been there, 6 would have been like full on in that diner when that bomb went off.
Who knows? I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
But after that, we get the classic, I am not a number, I'm a free man.
Yeah, we kind of see the aftermath of the explosion. 554 is dead. A couple other people are dead. The extended scenes, or the deleted scenes, which we'll get into in just a second, this scene is actually extended, and there's a little bit more to it. So we'll get into that in a bit. And then, 6 sees 93's funeral procession, basically. And I think at some point around here in the episode, we also see that 2 is taking care of some bedridden woman who presumably is like...
Yeah, and 11-12.
11-12 is there as well. 11, so they 12. Have this sort of... even if they're not related by blood, they sort of feel like a family, right? 2 is the father, the bedridden woman's the mother, and then 11-12 is the son or something.
Yeah, I had it spoiled in one of the production diaries that I think that 11-12 is 2's
Which,
son.
Yeah, it's not really a spoiler because it's very heavily telegraphed here.
Yeah, I guess the question is whether or not the bedridden woman is 11-12's mother, or is just a woman that 2 is caring for, and I presume that'll be answered later on.
But 6 sees 93's funeral procession. He has a little not heart to heart, he has a little chat with number 2. Or 2. Oh, God.
Yeah, he claims that 2 couldn't have found 93's body, but 2 says, well, I don't know. This is where he has a bit of a weird line that I couldn't wrap my head around at all, where he says something about 6 wanting to fit in and 6 needing to fit in, and I was like, I cannot parse this sentence for the life of me.
Yeah, doesn't he say 6 wants to escape?
Yeah, I'm sure he says that in there too. He has this whole conversation about 6 wanting to do things and talking about 6 in the third person, and just it's very difficult for me to parse, as evidenced by the fact that I can not remember any of it. Yeah, well, I mean,
this episode did really just throw us into the deep end. It ends with a recreation of another part of the intro sequence, the one where Patrick McGoohan runs out onto the beach and punches the air and says that he's a free man, and Rover shows up. But Rover is massive in this series.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I kind of imagine that's like what they would have wanted to, the size they would have wanted to make him in 67.
Yeah, they just couldn't do it or something. And that's where it ends. There's no preview for next time or anything, just like the original, so that's good, No Probably also because it aired the same day as episode 2. So, if you were watching this live, you would have just watched the next one right away.
True.
It's kind of...
Imagine us just in the next week, we have the entire next 5 episodes spoiled. And it's well...
Well, I really like it so far. They still have 4 more episodes for it, or 5 more for it to just fall apart, but I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. I think they're setting up mysteries that, like we mentioned before, I think are going to be solved, and I'm interested in seeing where they all go. So,
yeah, no. One thing I wanted to talk about, and something that a line that was probably just a throwaway line, but is really fascinating to me in the context of 93 looking like number 6, wearing number 6's outfits, etc. is when he's having that heart-to-heart with, I guess, 313 on the ground, and he asks her, like, what do you think is actually out there then? And she says, I don't know, maybe more villages. And that's when I started to wonder, like, if they're kind of setting up this thing that there are multiple villages, and, like, the village we saw in 1967, maybe the direction they wanted to go, if they could have gotten Magoon back, is it, like, that's another village. Like, this village that we see in this series exists alongside the other village, rather than being like a future adaptation of, or being a different incarnation of the same village. It actually exists alongside. And that's why everything is similar in terms of structure and what they're doing, but it's also just like eerily slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing that this is taking place in another time, basically in the present, because he has the cell phone, right, with the in the flashbacks with Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, in the village, the technology does not seem as advanced. I don't know if they ever draw attention to it or anything, but it's like the cars look old, everything looks kind of old. So, I don't know. It's just interesting to think about, though.
Yeah, and I mean, the cell phone thing is interesting because, like, the original Prisoner series basically invented cell phones for their episodes. You know, the red phone was like a wireless phone.
Yeah, we talked about this when Keith was on, actually, when we watched A, B, and C, is like, sliding doors didn't exist back then. Like, that was a cool thing in the show, because it didn't have, they weren't widespread in real life. So, not automatic doors, obviously sliding doors existed, but yeah.
Yeah. But like along those lines, I think the new series, I'm hoping that this series does something with this, and it looks like they are. The opening and the closing of every episode, the last frame and the first frame are like a computer monitor, almost like starting up and shutting down. And you see like a few frames, just a few bare frames of like of code, and, you know, very Matrix-esque, and it's green and everything. And now that we have computers and everything that is so commonplace, we have supercomputers, this surveillance state almost, like, I think they could implement that somehow into this series. And like I said, I think they're doing that with the first frame of the episode being the computer booting up almost, and the last frame basically being it shut down. Like, we're seeing some sort of voyeuristic look at Six's life in the village.
I'm just going to throw this out here. I don't think this is actually going to be done in the show or anything, but like, if you take a look at the original Prisoner, like, it's number 6 going from this, like, basically not average life, because he was like a secret agent or whatever, and not a barber like we thought he was or anything like that.
Well, that was just a meme, basically. Yeah. That was an inevitable meme. Yeah. I think we knew that he wasn't a barber, but we kept the joke going because it was funny.
No, yeah. So he's going from this, like, he's basically going from this contemporary, you know, spy setting. He's going from Danger Man, you might say, and he's going into this world that is mostly contemporary, but has a little bit of sci-fi and has a little bit of futuristic touches to it, right? With the cell phones and the sliding doors and Rover and all this stuff it's a little bit undercover. And this series almost feels like it's reversing that, where he's going from the current time to when he goes to the village, it's almost like he's in the past or something.
Right.
So
yeah, that is interesting, actually. Did you bring that up?
And that's definitely contrasting with what you talked about, which is the futuristic, like, monitors with the code and like the recorded conversations and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, we're only one episode in, so a lot of this is like the most green of green assumptions that we could make.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like that the series is, I mean, again, making these comparisons, but also just on its own, I like that the series is posing these questions and not giving us like any answers in the first episode. I think it did a good job in the first episode of setting up a mystery that I'm curious to see solved.
Right. Maybe one of the segments we want to have at the end here, and I'm thinking of this now, so it might not be the best of ideas, or we might change it a little bit, is like just giving an overall comparison. And yeah, I guess we don't want to lean too heavily into the comparison thing, but like just giving an overall like tonal comparison between this and the episode it's based on. Like, for example, I kind of wanted to touch on, like, in the original Arrival, it was more action-based, and, like, you didn't really learn too much about the village other than that it was, like, a bad place. Whereas this one, It had its moments. It had like the explosion and stuff like that, but you're definitely learning like the lore a little more in the plot. So
It's interesting in what each of the two arrivals choose to show, because even from Arrival 1967, we knew that the village wanted to know why Six resigned, whereas in this one, that may not actually be the case. Two never asks Six why he resigned. Two never even indicates why Six is in the village. So that's another mystery that's set up here. So on that front, we know less. But on the other front, we know more because we know a lot more about how the village operates, the like lower level people interaction kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see what they choose to show and how they choose to set up the mystery.
yeah, that's something we talked about with the original too. Is that it almost had this like PJ Hammond-esque quality to it, where it's like, I mean, I know we're the only ones who use the term PJ Hammond-esque, but it had this thing of like you know the stakes, right? You know what, it's very concrete what's happening, but then like the more you go into it, the more you're just like, wait, like what? But it always has that like number six resigned and they're trying to find out why, and that's what the whole show is about. Whereas this one is very mysterious.
Yeah, this one it's also a lot shorter. So, I mean, I know one of the criticisms we had of the original is that, like, by about episode 10, we were like,
yeah, just
Patrick.
Like, just give us Fallout.
Patrick, just give us Fallout. Yeah. Well, you would have had to have, why am I blanking on what's immediately before Fallout?
Once Upon a Time or something like, yeah.
Once Upon a Time.
Was it?
I think it was that.
Yes, it was. It was Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, I mean, you would need Once Upon a Time before Fallout, I think, but
yeah. So just give us Once Upon a Time and
please,
Fallout. Just give us the end.
Yeah, just like Patrick, just let's get moving.
This one probably is not going to have that same thing.
Hopefully.
I know if it's 6 episodes and it still does, then like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it might be like Doctor Who's 6-episode serial.
Nothing happens in episode 5. But speaking of like how mysterious it is, this is a good opportunity to talk about the deleted scenes, because most of them were just more explanatory scenes and things that would really clarify stuff. So there was 3 that they had, if you watch the deleted scenes on the DVD. The first one was not that interesting. There was really no context for it. It was number 6 finding a moped like half buried in the sand. He gets on it and then he's like chased by some people. I don't really know because it's not in context. And there's these people following him. He noticed, and they're going through the desert. It's not in the town. He notices they're following him, so he kind of jumps off and hides in the bushes, but then they don't even react to that. They just kind of keep on going. And they go through like this little oasis / like lake thing. And I really have no idea what that was all about. So, yeah.
I wonder where that would have fit in. Like, I wonder where that would have gone.
Yeah, the deleted scenes, I wonder, so each scene, before they show the scene, they show like the production code thing for the scene. So it was like SC, whatever number it was. But obviously, only having watched the finished episode, you don't know what that means at all. So, yeah. The next deleted scene was more interesting. It was that scene where 313 was driving 6 back into the village. And that scene was obviously not fully deleted, but parts of it were cut. It was basically 313's introduction. She basically just says, I'm a doctor. I'm your doctor. And it's my job to like find out what you're all about, 6. And that part of it was taken out. So, and 6 also delivers the amazing line of like, well, if I can't leave, then that means I'm a prisoner.
Yeah, I'm glad they cut that line. That's one of those like roll credits kind of things.
Yeah.
Like,
finally, we are become the prisoner.
Every time.
The other deleted scene was, again, not fully deleted. It was just cut down in the final episode. It was the aftermath of the explosion. 2 shows up, and he consoles the people who survived. And we actually forgot to talk about this in the episode, but Sig talks to number 313 about what that explosion even was, and she just gives like this really vague and weird answers, like it just happens sometimes. and we just deal with it. Which is like, what? Like what?
Yeah.
But the rest of the scene was 6 walks up to 2 and he's like, hey man, like, I know you caused this, and I know you caused 93's death, so like, stop trying to be the good guy here. And 2 kind of brushes him off. And
Which to me just really plays into the is the 93 character all a put on for 6? I don't know.
So those were the deleted scenes. They were pretty interesting, which is going to make me more eager to watch the deleted scenes for all the episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to watch the deleted scenes as well. And I mean, since we have the DVD and it's got these bonus features on, we might as well use them for the podcast. I'm going to take a look probably in the next week as well, looking at some of the other bonus features that are on here just to see what they entail.
Right. We can't...
Just because, like, you know, when you look at the back cover and you just look at the title of the bonus feature, and it's just like Beautiful Prison, the world of the prison, you're like, what the hell does that even, like, what is that about? Is it a documentary? Like,
I'm
what
sure
is
the
this?
world of the prisoner thing is like behind the scenes locations and showing all the sets and stuff.
Probably, but
I was wondering if we could continue doing a win or lose thing here, but it's not really relevant, I think.
yeah, I think it'll be difficult, excuse me, because of the from outside appearances more serialized nature of this
Yeah.
show.
So, oh well. We have the behind the scenes segment so far.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't need to have a ton of segments for every show, so.
Overall, I guess my final thoughts after having watched the first one is I'm just really eager to see where it goes, and I'm invested already. I really like the mystery they're setting up.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where it's going to go and what the answer is going to be. Why is 6 there, and what are they trying to get out of him? So we'll see. But we do also have some. I guess it's not really Britain's 10 actors.
The world's
America's
10
15 actors. So I looked up 4 of them. Ian Mckellen as number 2 is the first one I've got here. Obviously, he's the biggest name in this. Obviously, Lord of the Rings, Cats.
Hey, was that Cats 2019 or whatever?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yep. He's like the only person in that movie who can act and sing. Everybody else can only do one of those. He apparently had a voice cameo in Family Guy once. He was in the live-action Beauty and the Beast. He was in X-Men, Hobbit, Da Vinci Code, obviously. We're watching in our next season of Triple Play. A TV show about David Copperfield. He's done a lot of Shakespeare on stage. That's where he started, was stage Shakespeare, Royal Shakespeare Company. He also played Hitler, I discovered, in a TV movie called Countdown to War.
Wow.
So that's just a sampling of some of the things Ian McKellen's been in.
Oh, I guess it's my turn because I just looked them up right now. So, whatever. Haley Atwell plays Lucy, the woman in the flashbacks with 6. She's been in quite a lot of things. It looks like she's been in Doctor Who: The Eighth Doctor Adventures, which is an audio, I believe, although IMDb is listing it as a TV miniseries because they don't have the audio tag, and I guess they have to just list it as that. Frickin' heck.
Nice limitations of the system, I suppose.
Yeah, she was in the Pillars of the Earth miniseries, which is obviously based on that really famous book series about ancient architecture. Yeah. She's in Any Human Heart, Black Mirror. She's been in a lot of things. Life of Crime, the TV miniseries from 2013. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, she's been in a lot of Marvel stuff / Captain America. She was in The Winter Soldier. Something called Howard's End. I don't know what that is. Avengers Endgame.
It's the end of Howard.
Yeah. She's in Avengers Endgame. Yeah, she's in some Mission Impossible stuff as well, too. So that's her.
Nice. Next up, I have Jim Caviezel. Caviezel, I think I don't actually know how to pronounce it, but it's spelled Caviezel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I'm going to go for it. As 6, he's been in his biggest role was Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson directed, but the role I know him from, my favorite television show of all time, Person of Interest. But he's also been in Paul, Apostle of Christ, G.I. Jane, I Am David, Murder, She Wrote, he had a role in, Outlander, he had a role in. So he seems to be almost always on the cusp of being super famous and never quite getting there.
Yeah, and Ian McKellen gets first billing on this show and not him. So
yeah. I think I read too that like Jim Caviezel, like part of the reason why he took the role was to work with Ian McKellen. I seem to remember reading that.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, we have Jamie Campbell Bauer playing 1112. He hasn't been in much, but he's been in some pretty big things. He was in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. He plays a recurring character in Twilight. It looks like he's been in like a bunch of the Twilight movies.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh, hey, Thomas and Friends. And he was in Stranger Things. And he was also in the unaired Game of Thrones prequel pilot. So he was in that, but they just never put it out. It looks like.
The as of yet unaired or the never aired, never gonna be aired? Because I know they're working on a prequel series.
Well, I don't know because IMDb lists it as 2019 and completed, but it just says that it's unaired. So maybe they made it and just never put it out.
Nice. Nice. So...
What? I'm sure the people who made it got a paycheck, but like, yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, if they finished it, then they cut the check and run. Let's see, who do I have next? I have Ruth Wilson as 313, whose Wikipedia page link for me was purple, although like reading through her IMDb page, I couldn't figure out where I would have gone to her Wikipedia page from. But anyway, Luther, Saving Mr. Banks, Jane Eyre, His Dark Materials, which is ongoing, a TV show called The Affair, Mrs. Wilson, the 2012 adaptation of Anna Karenina, and one that I just wrote down because I thought it was funny, but it's called The Doctor Who Hears Voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doctor Who Hears Voices.
Yeah, my eyes immediately laser focused in on Doctor Who in that title. So,
well, okay, here we go. John Whiteley playing 93. Now, I was wondering if there was going to be any weird meta stuff like there was with the actors when we watched The Prisoner, because if you remember back to The Prisoner, there was always one actor. Not always, but in a lot of the episodes, there was one actor who died very shortly after being in The Prisoner, and we thought that was really weird. And John Whiteley, who plays 93, who is the character who presumably would have been played by Patrick McGowan, lending a bigger meta element to the show, is related to the meta of this series because he's been in a lot of stuff related to where else but the place where this takes place, Africa, which obviously is a massive continent, but he's been in a lot of things that take place in Africa. So he doesn't have a big career, but he has a long one, stretching from the 60s to 2019, but only 34 credits. So he has been in the Cape Town Affair. He's been in a lot of different things that are not big. Playing with Fire, the TV movie, The Stick. He was in Othello. So again, the Shakespeare, Shakespeare play adaptation with the main character who is like, not ostracized, but is part of I don't know if you've ever read it, but like part of the thing of that is like he is like Othello is from Africa, right? So
I think I have actually read Othello. Othello's the one that's the same as Much Ado About Nothing, but one's a tragedy and one's a comedy. At least according to my English teacher in high school, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, Othello,
I can see it.
Yeah, the whole thing is like,
honestly.
I don't remember too much about Othello because I don't remember much about any of the Shakespeare things that I've read.
No,
but like Othello's black, and that's like he kind of gets other characters give him crap for that. You know, he's in this position of power. He's in the African Express. Ernest Goes to Africa. Magic Journey to Africa. He was in the Giver. Is that the one is that the book, The Giver? Yeah, I don't know. 2014. It looks like it is. I didn't know they made a movie of it in 2014.
Yeah, they did. I remember it not getting very good reviews.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep was in it, apparently. So was Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift acts? I didn't know that.
She was in Cats, too.
Oh, my God.
She wrote a whole new song for Cats. Going for that Best Original Song. Oscar, I guess.
Yeah, this guy's been in a lot of stuff, but it looks like he has like really big gaps in his career. He's just in like a few things every couple of years. So, yeah.
Well, let's see here. The last person I have is Lenny James as 147, the taxi driver. He's been in Jericho. He had a recurring role in The Walking Dead for 3 years, I think. He's in Peter Rabbit 2, which hasn't come out yet. Blade Runner 2049. Voice role in Destiny 2. Countdown, Stay Within, and the 1998 adaptation of Les Mis. Those are the biggest things he's been in. Jericho is the one where I first saw him. Jericho's a sci-fi series that got really, really, really frustrating after the first season for me. Like, to watch. It was just really frustrating to watch after the first season. I started checking out because the plot was going nowhere. You could tell that they didn't know what to do with it after the first season.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to just end, even if it's like on a cliffhanger or even if it's not fully wrapping up everything. Mm-hmm. Just leave you with that what could have been. Anyway, finally we have Jessica Haynes playing 554. She's only been in 9 things.
Mm-hmm.
So, Home Affairs, Disgrace, White Wedding, I don't know what those are. The Bang Bang Club, Outcasts. She was in the Cape Town TV miniseries, which I don't know if that's related to the other Cape Town that we just talked about. Or no, that was the Cape Town Affair, my bad. But anyway, she was in that miniseries in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's her.
Yeah, well, there's America's 15 actors.
Yeah. Some of these people were British, like Ian McKellen.
Yeah, I mean, Ian McKellen and Haley Atwell.
Yeah.
We really pigeonholed our segment there, though, by naming it Britain's 10 Actors. Even though that was, I mean, it was a funny name when we started the segment.
And we are probably going to, overall watch more British shows than anything else, I think. I mean, that's what we have done so far. This is the first, I don't think we even really mentioned it, but this is the first non-British thing we're watching for Inevitable. Non-fully
Not the
British.
first non-American show, the first non-British show we've watched for a podcast, because we've concurrently with this, actually, mostly for most of the season, we'll be watching not Children of Earth, Miracle Day, Torchwood Miracle Day.
Mm-hmm. And we've obviously watched the Doctor Who TV movie, which was, again, I mean, it's not fully American because it had that the British, production side to it, which this does as well. But, obviously this is being written and directed by 2 British people, so.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even mention that the director has directed multiple episodes. Nick Horan has directed multiple episodes of Doctor Who and 2 episodes of Sherlock after this.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was after this.
And he directed the 2015 Childhood's End.
Yeah, the sci-fi series, SYFY.
Yeah, based on the Arthur C. Clarke novel.
So, which I said we might do off recording. I said maybe we should do that for Inevitable at some point. It's only 3 episodes. Bang that out in less than a month.
Heck yeah. That's how we choose shows on this podcast, is whether they're short.
I mean, you joke.
No, I mean,
but also that is certainly an aspect of
it's
it.
Like the number one consideration, I would say.
I'd say it's number 2. Number 1 is we watch shows that people have recommended to us, but then of the shows people recommend to us, we narrow it down first by length. Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of length, there's only 5 more episodes of this to go. I'm curious to see where it goes, and I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, I'm liking it so far. I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm just going to echo everything you just said, and no emails yet, obviously, this week, because it's the first episode of a new season. So if you would like to email us, though, reach out. Please do tell us about this. I know that this has a very contentious place in Prisoner fandom, so I'd love to hear from some of the people who listen to our shows what they think, and if you would like to.
I know Keith likes it. He's said that multiple times, so if you're listening to this, shout out. You like the show, Keith.
Well, we knew going into this, we were like, I bet we're going to like it because we always seem to run counter to popular opinion on our podcasts.
Yeah.
Anyway, like the very first recommendation we got on another podcast for Trust Your Doctor was like, they have some very interesting opinions, so...
Yep. Shout out to Crinoid Podcast.
Yeah, shout out to Jim and Martin of the Crinoid Podcast. Love you guys. Anyway, if there are people who would like to reach out, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on The Prisoner 2009. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts at Inevitable. Be sure to leave a rating if you like this show.
Check us out on Facebook, like us on Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're going to be watching episode 2, Harmony, but until then, the end.